relations. We ask for the grace of the Lord. We ask for grace of all the gurus and of the self, the nature of our own self, the Brahman. Om Namo Narayanaya. Today we are going to start the 6th chapter. This chapter, the name of this chapter is called as Atma Samyama Yoga, or also more commonly known as Dhyana Yoga. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the focus on Dhyana Yoga is mostly in this chapter. Of course, other chapters, they'll have some references. It will come in, like in different chapters, like even the last chapter, towards the end of 5th chapter, we saw some references. There will be some references again in 18th chapter. So all this will come, but the main chapter on Dhyana Yoga is this one. And also there is some difference from the normal Dhyana Yoga to this Dhyana Yoga, which we will discuss in coming. So in the beginning of this teachings, Bhagavan had taught us about Karma Yoga. That was after giving the knowledge, Sankhya Yoga. He went directly as a sadhana, he talked about Karma Yoga. So the difference, fundamental difference between Karma Yoga and Dhyana Yoga is that both are yogas meant for Chitta Shuddhi, meaning both are meant for purification, so that one becomes qualified for knowledge, for wisdom, for realization of self or realization of Bhagavan. So these paths, the fundamental difference in these paths is Karma Yoga and to some extent Karma Sannyasa Yoga are mostly what is called as Bahiranga Sadhana, meaning it is a external sadhana. It is a sadhana that involves external activities. And Dhyana Yoga primarily is called as Antaranga Sadhana, meaning it is an internal, it is the activity of inner instruments. Anga means parts or that which constitutes. Bahiranga means external senses and instruments are involved. Antaranga means inner instruments are involved. So these are different things. So from a yogic point, Karma Yoga is as valid as Dhyana Yoga from the Bhagavad Gita context. So Bahiranga and Antaranga these are the two broad sadhanas. Now, when we talk about meditation, let us first discuss or just think a little bit. What exactly are we saying when we are referring to meditation? See, meditation is anything where there is a continuous stream of thoughts in one direction, and there is a series of refusal of thoughts contrary to that direction. So this is called as Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha Vijati Vritti Rahita or Vijati Vritti Tiraskritya. So the Sajati Vritti Pravava means the continuous flow of thoughts on the same lines, same species, you can say. Sajati literally means same species. So a continuous flow of thoughts in one direction. And the Vijati Vritti Rahita, meaning devoid of any contrary thoughts along that earlier lines which we were meditating on. So this requires a clear, like a certain object or like for an example is this, like if I decide to meditate on Shiva, so Shiva becomes my object of meditation. And any thoughts I have in that direction, which enables me to go deeper into my thinking of Shiva. That is Sajati Vritti Bhavava. In that, while I'm thinking about Shiva, if I think about like my house or even about like other gods also, that is Vijati Vritti, Vijati Vritti. So these are the two different things. So while we are focusing on that, that only we want. That is the prakriya of dhyana. So it requires, according to Ashtanga, it requires the dharana first. The qualification is the dharana. And before that, it is a pratyahara, meaning you are disconnecting from all senses and other activities, and then you come to dharana, single-minded, ekagrita, focus. And from that single-minded focus, you go to dhyana. So this is the process in yoga, as in the Raja Yoga of Patanjali, and in Bhagavad Gita. There is no difference in that. Now, when we use the word dhyana, it doesn't need to be always in the spiritual path direction only. So this is why, dhyana can be broadly also on three kinds we take meditation. It is not understood in that way, but when we use the word in a broad sense, the word can imply meditation or focus on at three levels or three kinds. The first one is thinking also of something worldly, something which is perishable, something which is, an object of this world. That is called that is what we say, right? Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. In the second chapter it is there also what dhyana is used, meaning a person is thinking constantly of something that he desires. So the common spiritual example is this. A miser is constantly thinking about making money. So his meditation, or a person who is very interested in making money, his only thoughts are that. Or somebody wants to be a champion in a tennis or some sport. Constantly they are meditating on that. And there is like all these kinds of things, like even a lover. A lover is constantly meditating on the beloved, meaning that thought is always there. So all these are not going to lead to sattvic happiness, higher happiness. These are all rajasic and tamasic happiness induced meditations. And they cause more bondage because it binds the mind to the outer objects, which are perishable and ultimately going to lead to suffering. So, in order to get away from that, karma yoga was mentioned. So the karmi, the one who is a karmi, meaning the one who wants to do based on raga dvesha, first training is to karma yoga. So at least the outward vikshepas, the outward activities will reduce. You will get some kind of a freedom from desiring specific goals without giving up activity. So that is the first step. So then ideally the person has done karma yoga, and then comes to what is the normal dhyana process, which is the dhyana on some devata or on some aspect of divine, sattvic aspect. It could be an ishta, it could be a guru, or it could be anything that quietens the mind, brings the mind to focus, calmness, a state of stability, a state of positivity. So all this are the normal dhyanas, which we can say Saguna Brahma dhyana. So focusing on the using some object, but these are not material objects. These are not worldly objects. In this, you can also maybe meditate on the sky or something, but not a tangible worldly objects. So these are liberating, freeing. That by fixing on this, the internal kleshas fixation will reduce. So this is the other kind of dhyana. Then there is then one more dhyana is there, and this dhyana is mostly the dhyana of Vedanta, which is the Nirguna Brahman Upasana, or what we call as Niddidyasana. So, what is the fundamental difference? When we broadly explain the difference between dhyana and niddidyasana, we will just generally say that niddidyasana is that which is done after shravanam, meaning you have heard the knowledge, you have got the knowledge, then you meditate with that knowledge, then that becomes niddidyasana. We generally say like that. However, there is a much more deeper division between the Saguna Brahma Upasana and Nirguna Brahma Vipassana, or the dhyana that involves the Saguna Brahma and the dhyana that involves the Nirguna. What is the difference is that when we meditate on this aspect of Saguna Brahma, there is still an object, an object that the mind can wrap around. So if you meditate on Krishna, then you are meditating on that form of Krishna. Or you say, I don't want to meditate on the form of Krishna. I'm going to meditate on the attribute, like that loving nature of Krishna or the blueness of Krishna. So all that is, again, there is a rupa, there is a akara, there is a guna. So these are still, the mind has something to easy. So that is why, Bhagwan said for most people, that is the easier path. So this was mentioned, in the beginning of the fourth chapter, and third chapter also, like where, he asked that what is easier, that focusing on the saguna or the nirguna. So Bhagwan said, focus on that saguna. It is easier because the mind can wrap around it. Yet the goal is to go to that next level, meaning the why? Because when we are doing the nididhyasana, in reality, what happens is we are first shifting from focusing on the object to focusing on the subject. So this is the fundamental difference. Until now, we had an object to focus on. Like if I have a pen, then I focus on this pen. So this becomes an object, and I am the subject. But I'm still focusing on the object. Like all meditations are mostly based on that. Like you meditate on a candle, and mentally you create some image, or mentally you create a thought, an object. So these are all object-based meditation. That is still not what Vedanta is trying to take us to, and even eventually yoga is not taking us to that, because they are also in the yoga. It is the Purusha. What is Purusha? Purusha is that self, one's own self. So the ultimate focus is to meditate on one's own Swarupa, one's own self, and that self is non-distinct from Brahman. So you can meditate with that notion that Aham Brahmasmi, or I am Purna, I am Asanga, or that notion that the nature of supreme reality is me. Hamsa, Soham, all this we say, right? So these are all the ways to ascertain that the subject is the focus of that meditation. So when we start Nididyasanam, this is where we go about. However, as the Nididyasanam progresses, we are trying to transcend even that subject. So until then, until that Nididyasanam is happening, there is still a subject, there is the meditation, there is a meditator and the object of meditation. This Triputi we say. Three things are there. So there is the I will say again. So there is that me who am meditating, the meditator. Then there is a process of meditation. I'm using some vritti, that I am Purna, I am complete, or something. Or this supreme Brahman is the reality. So some concept, some thought I'm using. So that is the process of meditation. And then there's an object of meditation there also. That object is me only in this case. Or the object is a Brahman only. But still that is there. So eventually, what is this Nididyasanam going to take us to is that it is going to dissolve that, not just that object, but also the subject and the process. So there is that that collapse of that object, subject, and that meditator. So this is now the process of meditation. Now, when we start meditating, what happens to most of us? There is a for any kind of meditation. So this is mentioned here in the Bhashya. There's a long Bhashya for this thing. Many of that aspect of that Bhashya will not make much sense when we get into it right away. So we will go as we go through in the chapter that different aspect, because he's already borrowing a lot of points from that chapter when he discusses this Bhashya. So, but the point, some basic points are this. There is a Purva Pakshi who is saying that there are some of those people who have got to this stage already where there is no meditation, meditator, and the process is not there from them. So they are become this Aruruda. They have ascended. They have transcended or ascended or transcended. And then there are those, who are attempting. Aruruksha, the one who is trying to attempt. Then there are many who give up at the first attempt or they don't even try. So now when we talk about dhyana, what are we trying to do? Who is it meant for? So obviously that person who has transcended, he doesn't need any of that, right? The meditation, as we discussed, is for somebody who is at least wanting to do object meditation or subject meditation. If both of them are not needed, then that person doesn't need Dhyana Yoga anymore, meaning his chitta is so shuddhi, he just needs knowledge, like all these saints we hear about, right? Like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and all that. Like they already had attained that state. They didn't need lot more meditation. That Totapuri gives him one pointer and he's established. Now there are those who are not interested. The people they're meditating on worldly things. What about them? So obviously, if they're not interested, you cannot make the mind cooperate. So that person has to have enough motivation, meaning at least he should have seen through that discursive nature of the mind and struggle related to that. Then only that person will do it. Like for example, somebody you give a new phone to, and there's a lot of apps and all that. So 24 hours or whatever, 18 hours they're watching it and they're okay with that, there's no problem, then you can't tell them anything. Only once they start feeling, oh, I'm suffering so much of watching this, doing that, then only they will want to do something self-improvement. So it's with any sadhana, it is like that. Now, this teaching is for those who are trying to ascend, meaning those who want to make that ascent. These people have a need. So, what happens? They now come to meditation. Many of you who have attempted meditation, you know this. Like, even, when I initially began in my teenage years, the mind was very restless. But somehow I got interested into meditation. The first 2 times, I said, okay, I will attempt. I attempted meditation and I saw the mind was extremely restless. And like how many people come and now tell us that, like, oh, this is not for me. So I can try something. I'm not made for meditation. This is, many people say that, right? So this is what is called the first stage. Here, if you don't make attempt or if you're not guided, if you don't have proper cooperation, training, satsanga, you give up. This is what in some traditional circles is called as a waterfall experience. First you go, it is like that thing, you're like going down the waterfall. Suddenly everything, falls. And you say like, oh, this is getting worse. This is bad news. Meditation is not for me. So so that is the first thing. But if you persist, if you get guidance, if you are guided and repeatedly supported, and you are also, more importantly, you have the right approach, you are given the right approaches, the mantra, the techniques, and pranayama and other things, then slowly you come to what is called the river experience, where you start seeing that there is some flow, some consistency, even though you still are not able to sit still, it is restless, it is moving, but still you start sensing there is a shift. from what is that kind of a waterfall kind of feeling to a river-like, smooth, a little more smooth, subtler. And you start having some moments of like breakthroughs where you are able to enjoy that experience because at least the river flows in one direction, right? Huh? Rather than flowing in multiple directions, at least the river is flowing in one direction. So there's a motivation for meditation now. Then slowly, if you persist with some interest, with some detachment, and how we do this, I will discuss now. There next we come to what is called as the lake experience. That is where the mind stills, the mind calms. You glimpse a thing of stillness, a sense of peace when the thoughts come to an end. A glimpse of what Patanjali calls as chitta vritti nirodha. So there is a temporary kind of experience of chitta vritti nirodha, but it is strong enough for you to want to move towards the complete chitta vritti nirodha. So now, looking of dhyana from this context, how does it apply to the topic? The topic is we were discussing karma yoga and karma sannyasa, where bhoktritva, kartritva, everything was given up. Now, where does this figure? So this aspect of Antaranga Sadhana is not just for stilling the mind. It is for someone who has already stilled the mind and now wants to abide in that truth. So this word Atma Samyama Yoga can be translated in two ways. One is that it is commonly translated as the self restraint of the mind, or the control of the mind. So here Atma means the mind, and the chitta we say. So the control of the mind becomes a chitta vritti nirodha, cessation of the mind thoughts. But really, when we look at it, this is what Madhusudana Saraswati and others will translate. They call it really, it is the Niddidyasana process of meditating on the self, meditating on that supreme reality or recognizing that supreme reality. So how does this come about? So here now we will look at the overview of all the sadhanas, because before we go into that, I want to share with all of you a little things that I have prepared, which is based on the aspects of sadhana. How do we before we attain the state, what are the processes of different sadhana? So in from a Bhagavad Gita context only. So in this one, there are three ways in which sadhana progresses. Sorry. Got the wrong one. Okay. So is this visible?
Yes, Swamiji.
Okay, yeah, okay. Now we will just look at it. Now this is based on Bhagavad Gita. So the three the essence of sadhanas based on Bhagavad Gita here. Okay. All right. So the first one here is what we can call as the process of abandoning or restraint. So what does this abandon and restraint mean? When we start our sadhana, we start with what is called as setting some boundaries. Everybody knows this. Like, if you want to do some japa, some puja, or some mantra, you have to set some time and you have to give up other things. So there is what we call as a shama, dhamma, tyaga involved, meaning you are giving up something to focus on this. So this is the removal or the restraint. You're restraining something or you're abandoning something to focus on something more. So this involves like giving up the rajas and tamas activities. So this is putting away. So what are the practices for this? This is where karma yoga is mostly helpful. But in this practice, what we call as yama and niyama. So here what is happening? You are practicing certain vows, satya, ahimsa, asteya, all these are different things. And then you are practicing other things, brahmacharya for those who are qualified for that. And then those who are doing the swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana, tapas. So all this, like, like you undertake fast for certain days because the body is in better condition, or you go on retreats, or you go out of your normal things, or maunam, silence. So what is happening through all this? In the process of karma yoga also this happens. In the process of dhyana yoga also it happens. So in order to do dhyana, you have to give up something and focus on something else. In karma yoga, you are giving up the results while continue with your actions. You cannot give up your actions, right? But you continue with with what you're doing, but you're giving up the bhoktrutva. So what happens as a process of this? There is less vikshepa and the kama nivritti happens, meaning that excessive desires, that vasanas which we have, they start slowly getting streamlined. So you are able to free yourself from distractions, addictions. See all these rehabilitations they have, right? What do they do in those rehabs? They take that person out of the every environment and put him in a separate environment. Similarly, retreats are like that, where you can't use your phones. I mean, most spiritual retreats, you can't use phones and other things, and you have to focus on that. So, in the meditation practice, what are the meditation practice for this? So, this is where, after yama niyama, we also work with pranayama and asana. So these are the ways of abandoning and restraint. And this process, most people are familiar to some extent. Every kind of sadhana involves this. Like I'll give you a more specific example. Here, you're trying to overcome that afflictive emotions, the habitual patterns, which are very strong, which don't allow us to be at peace. Now, when we go with this, comes the next one. The next one is the main practice. What is the next one? This is the purification. This is a chitta shuddhi process. So here the chitta shuddhi is doing what? It is addressing our vasana kshaya. It is turning this. It is also, we can call it as a process of transformation, where our kleshas, afflictions, and tamas and rajas, all this turn into sattvic. All the darkness, all the dirt or the darkness in our chitta gets transformed into purity, into light. So this is the process of what we call antakarana shuddhi, vasana kshaya, klesha nivritti. All this is happening at this point. So not just that, all our old samskaras, all our old patterns, which define us, through which we get identified, they are replaced. This is also called, the specific practices are there for this, what is called as a pratipaksha bhavana. In Yoga Sutra, it is called as pratipaksha bhavana. What is pratipaksha bhavana? It is like an antidote. If you are, if you have certain kleshas, very strong raga, meaning craving, you have too strong craving. Then you have to practice opposite. What is opposite? You start giving, you start sharing. So this is like a pratipaksha bhavana, antidote, replacing the old with the new. Of course, the understanding and wisdom has to be there. Then only all that will work. Otherwise, like, you will not continue, or you will feel almost regret for even doing things. So from understanding wisdom, when it comes, then that old samskaras slowly start getting replaced. So for this, again, Karma Yoga is there. How Karma Yoga is helping us with the overcoming Raga Dveshas. And in Karma Yoga, as we do Karma Yoga, we learn what is called as Prasada Buddhi, right? When you mix that Karma Yoga with Bhakti Yoga, meaning when you do from that perspective of Bhakti, then you are willing to accept a sense of accepting anything as a blessing. Hmm? So everything that comes in your life, good or bad, you accept as coming from the Lord as a blessing. That is a prasada buddhi. And now your actions also get transformed. When you merge that karma yoga from the bhakti yoga perspective, what happens? Your actions are also transformed. Because everything you do, you offer to Bhagavan. Kayena vacha manasendriyarva buddhyatmanatva prakriti svabhava karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanaya iti samarpayami. So everything you offer to Bhagavan. So this attitude, transforms our negative kind of actions, our actions which are greed tainted, our actions which are aversion tainted. And all that other things that go with this, the pride, jealousy, everything that go with that, they get transformed. Now, as we are doing this here, as we are doing these practices, there's one more practices also that end up happening. What is that? That practice is that karma sannyasa. Where, as you keep doing this, your doership also, the doership is also relinquished. Okay, so the karma sannyasa, giving up the doership, relinquishing that doership. Now, in here, when we were doing this, we mentioned what is the meditation practice when you're doing removal, because when you remove, the habitual patterns are strong. You might have removed, you might have done yama niyama, but you still have to meditate there, right? So there you're using pranayama and asanas. It may also include all this hatha yoga asanas because the body is not still. It has a lot of vikshepas. So you do the hatha yoga asanas and pranayama. So that is for the basic entry level people. They need that for the meditation. Now for those who are already practicing towards chitta shuddhi, working towards chitta shuddhi, what is the meditation for them? For them is where the upasanas come, which help the mind towards ekagrata. See, the earlier part, person was kshipta and muda. We were trying to just through pranayama and other things bring that point to vikshipta, so that at least he can at least shift to a momentary state of pause, momentary state of quietude. Now, in this one, in Upasana, what happens is you're moving towards from Vikshipta to Ekagrata. There's a focus. And here, what happens? The self awareness starts coming. The person starts introspecting. There is a greater degree of awareness of one's own thoughts, words, and actions. So earlier, what happened? The person would not even have a sense of awareness. So the only at the level of kaika, he would know at the level of physical action. Slowly, he becomes aware of the actions relating to speech and mind. Ultimately, the more attention comes to mind, so the awareness of thoughts in the mind starts coming, meaning what kind of thoughts am I harboring? What are the thoughts that are arising? See, when you look at the three forms of actions, kaika, vachika, manasika, physical, verbal, mental, which of them controls, which of them is has the greatest degree of control of all these three? Which one is the one which controls?
Manasika.
Manasika. But see, actually, this is only for some person who has an awareness. But for a normal person who doesn't have any awareness, the body controls the mind normally. How? Because the addictions and the habits of the body are so strong. So like a thief, for example, his habit of stealing is so strong that his mind will think only on the lines of how to steal. So the physical habits, rather those habits which have now become a part of his body, or this habits which is like people who are criminals or things. So those physical induced habits, they start controlling their mind, at that degree. But the ability to retain that control is through the mind only. So ultimate boss is the mind. However, when a person has got too caught up with kleshas, too caught up with vasanas, then what happens? That control exercised through that intellect is less, because he doesn't have awareness of that intellect. He cannot exercise that wisdom. That discernment is not there. So that is where the person, in order to increase that, he does manana. Like we have our manana questions, right, for Bhagavad Gita. So those are all based mostly for that. Some for the higher level, which we will discuss, but most of them are for this chitta shuddhi, introspection, awareness. So they will help us to increase the level of that purity of that buddhi. See, buddhi can work only when sattva guna is there. So buddhi is almost synonymous with sattva, sometimes. Otherwise, that buddhi that works is not the buddhi, it is the manas only that is working. So here, manasika, when we say manasika control, we are talking about the control at the level of buddhi. Now there is one more thing. This is the last one. What is the last practice or the last means of sadhana? And this is the one that mostly Yoga Sutra and Vedanta focus on. And this is the thing of transcendence. In yoga, it is called as kaivalya, meaning the sense of detachment, aloofness, freedom. In what we call as moksha is also transcendence. What is this transcendence? So this transcendence is mentioned in two ways. One is transcendence is abiding in that self, in that Atma Tattva, in that Swarupa, or realizing the divinity within oneself, meaning that supreme, that Paramatma Tattva, that presence of that supreme, has the essence of one's being. So realizing that essence of the Tattpada. So either way, whether we realizing the essence of Twampada or the essence of Tatpada, or what we say, the realizing that Purusha as distinct from Prakriti. So that is that transcendence. So what happens then? That there is that freedom from ignorance. And the root of Ragadvesha. See, until now, the Ragadvesha was taking over. Even a person who was working at the level of Chitta Shuddhi, he has Ragadvesha. He's not completely free from Ragadvesha. The thing is that he does Karma Yoga with such an attitude that he wants to overcome that Ragadvesha. It's just like a father who wants to, let's say, a father wants to drop off a child to the school in the morning. And he has to go through the traffic, and he doesn't like going through the traffic. But he considers it's his duty, even though he doesn't like, he will go through that because that is the duty. So he has Ragadvesha there. But he will continue doing the duty. That is the Chitta Shuddhi process. But here what happens? He transcends that. He transcends, even the Ragadvesha are transcended. That root of Ragadvesha is seen through. And this is the ultimate yoga. In some places like Mandukya and all that, we call as Asparsha Yoga. And in Bhagavad Gita, it is called as Sthita Prajna, or some places as Samatvam. The constant practice of Samatvam is also a kind of transcendence. Why? Because Samatvam is being free from Dvandva. Dvandva Vimukta, it says, right? So the person who rises above all these dualities, uh, that is that transcendence, that state of transcendence. Now, in our sadhana, once we come, we hear all this. Our plan A in sadhana, if we want to do sadhana, our plan A should be this. We want that's this one sadhana which resolves everything, which resolves and dissolves all kleshas. So this is the plan A. But the thing is, because there is no, there are still kleshas and vasanas, we have to go back to plan B. What is plan B? Huh? So the plan B is this part of transformation, purification, sadhana. So if we can't transcend, the kleshas, if we can't transcend ragadvesha, if we cannot transcend all the karmas also, then what? That if you cannot transcend all the karma means if you cannot abide in that karma sannyasa through jnana, if you cannot be free from doership, then we fall back to chitta shuddhi practices, upasanas and all that. Now, here, when we are doing this, what are the practices for transcendence? So, mostly Jnana Yoga. There we realize that self is the akarta, self is the abhokta, meaning it is not even the enjoyer. It's like Bhagavan, we said, right? Bhagavan is the enjoyer, but he is not the enjoyer. He is the doer, but he is not the doer. So, like that, that kind of a realization comes through that Jnana Yoga. So that is the main practice of transcendence here. So even in the Yoga Sutra, it is that Viveka, Viveka between Purusha and Prakriti. That is that Viveka Khyati it is called there. Here it is called as Jnana Yoga only, Atma Jnana. So now the meditation. What is the meditation here? So here when we say meditation, this contemplation on self, that the name of the chapter is this now, Atma Samyama Yoga. When we look from this point of transcendence, it is called as Atma Samyama Yoga, means meditation on the self, provided we are at that stage of transcendence. If we are not on the stage of transcendence, the same Atma Samyama Yoga becomes number 2, purification. And if you're not even at that stage where you're going through the purification, then same Atma Samyama Yoga becomes restraint of the mind. So the same word Atma Samyama Yoga, Atma means self or mind, Samyama, control or abiding, yoga, that process of that. So it can become a process of restraint, it can become a process of purification, or it can become a process of transcendence, depending on the qualification and the level of the sadhaka. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is a overall process, and we will keep making references to this as we go. And so now, with this introduction, we will, okay, it's almost time, but we will look in next class at the first chapter, first shloka. But what is happening here in this context when we say meditation on the self, so the person who started off as a karmi, he was encouraged in the third chapter and a little bit in the fourth chapter to come work towards karma yoga. Because there Arjuna asks, you gave jnana and karma, which is greater? So by there, Bhagavan says, between jnana and karma, the karma is better for you because the level where you have to do karma. Then later on, in terms of upasana, in the fifth chapter, he asks again, right? Should I do saguna or nirguna? So there, Bhagavan says, both will take you to that, but nirguna is harder because your capacity is not there for that. Now that same aspect, when we look at it, he's going to talk in this aspect that the person who has attained to karma sannyasa, meaning a person who is no longer interested in the doership, he is not identified with the doing also. To such a person who is free from that doership, he can directly abide in that self because there is no ego coming in between. If there is ego coming in between, then you cannot abide in that self. So, yet, if the ego is purified, there can also be a form of purified ego. How can it be a form of purified ego? When one has become a disciple or one has become a devotee, he continues to have the ego, but that ego is purified, meaning it is now surrendered. So such a surrendered ego or such a surrendered chitta is now capable to meditate on that Atma Tattva or the Paramatma Tattva. So this Atma Samyama Yoga now becomes the means for moving to that stage, the next stage of sadhana. So these three things, if you can remember, this is the essence of all the sadhanas we are coming across in Gita. So the first one, what is the first one? Anybody remembers? From what I gave?
Restraint, abandon.
Restraint, yes. Restraint or abandon. So giving up, restraint. Then that includes shama, dhamma, tyaga, other things. The second one, what is the second one?
Purification.
Purification or transformation, purification, chitta shuddhi. So in the transformation, purification, what is getting transformed?
The mind.
And what in the mind?
The ego is getting subdued also?
That is also there.
Kleshas.
Kleshas. The kleshas are getting transformed, purified. Not purified, they are getting eradicated rather. The kleshas are getting eradicated. The vasana kshaya is happening. And then the last one, transcendence. In transcendence, what is happening?
Abiding.
Abiding and
Abiding in the self.
Then
Meditation on the self.
Meditation on the self. But what has happened? What shift is happened mainly, or what? Like we said, kleshas is getting eradicated. What is getting eradicated?
From avidya.
Eradication of avidya, which is the mula, the root of all raga, dveshas and kleshas is avidya. So the transcendence is happening there. So again, now going back for restraint. What are the practices he gave for restraint from Bhagavad Gita context or Patanjali Yoga context also?
Karma Yoga, Brahmacharya, Asana, Pranayama.
Correct. All of that. These are all for restraint. It's just like, more practical usage is that. Like if you are addicted to nowadays, common thing, right? Phone addiction. So how does restraint work? You don't, you have a time when you put off your phone, or evening sometime you put your phone somewhere else and then you do your work or you do your meditation. So this is all restraint, like going on retreat, fast, see, there are the practices. So karma yoga involves that, right? So what are you giving up in karma yoga? When you come to karma yoga, what are you restraining from, or what are you rejecting in karma yoga? Bhoktrutva. Very good. Yeah. Now these concepts we should be very clear. Bhoktrutva we're giving up. Now the next practice we looked at is this chitta shuddhi, purification practices. So here in this purification practice, what are the the sadhana is purification. The practices are what in this?
Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, karma sannyasa.
So what is the difference between the karma yoga in the restraint versus the karma yoga in purification? I mean, there's not much difference, but what is the shift in focus here.
Karma Yoga, we overcome Raga Dvesha.
Ha.
Karma Sannyasa is Prasada Buddhi.
No, okay, but Karma Yoga was mentioned. I mentioned Karma Yoga for restraint also. Karma Yoga was used. Huh? Karma Yoga is used here also, but there is a very subtle difference in the use of Karma Yoga for second one.
Upasanas towards bhakti.
Bhakti, upasana. Huh? So see, how do you get Arpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi? Only if you are having some sense of offering. Earlier, Karma Yoga is done by a father to a child, I told you, right? See, that father taking that child, it is not necessarily Bhakti Yoga. Huh? That is also Karma Yoga in a sense, because he has to do the duty, he is doing it, father's duty, out of obligation. The one in purification, chitta shuddhi. See, when you do it with the sense of bhakti, how is that chitta shuddhi happening? In the karma yoga, that restraint happens without bhakti also. But with bhakti, how does the purification happen?
With the idea of as an offering to the Lord.
So then that idea, how does that change? How does it change the darkness to light or the gross to thing? I mean, in our language of yoga or something, how can we say what is transforming to what?
Samatva.
Giving up doership.
See, I'm literally using the word from our thing. Darkness to light is what? Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. So what is that Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya?
From tamas and others to the sattva.
So moving from the tamas to that. So that is literally purification is that. So when you offer it to Bhagavan, when you do prasada buddhi and all that, your mind is becoming more sattvic, more positive, more lighter. So this is the process here. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya we say, right? So, and then the last one of transcendence. So in this, when we talk about here, what are our practices here in this last one?
Jnana Yoga.
Jnana Yoga. But Jnana Yoga accompanied with what?
Niddidyasana.
Nididyasanam. So Nididyasanam is the main aspect. So fundamental difference here, it is no longer just dhyana. It is Niddidyasana, meaning now the transcendent mind is able to meditate on that Nirguna, Nirakara, Nirupadika. Until now, the mind was not ready. Now you don't need an object. You don't need any subject also. So initially you still had to have a sense of a subject. Oh, I am here, I am the drishta, drigdrishya and all that. Now the mind becomes subtly, doesn't even need that. Okay. So this
Swami,
is, yeah.
Swami, I have
Yes.
a short question. For example, this Mananan,
Yeah.
can I see Mananan also as a meditation? Because, for example, when we reflect, we are focusing on a
Yes.
subject, and we stay there till we have an insight, or you know what I mean? Is that also a meditation?
Yes,
Meditation
yeah.
with reflection.
Correct. So that is why I think I must have put it there in the second one, Chitta Shuddhi, especially, the process of Chitta Shuddhi. Mananam is a process there, where it is a meditation. That Mananam is one of the meditation practice, meaning it is see, we said, right, what is meditation? A continuous flow of thoughts in one direction. So if you are constantly thinking in that same direction without entertaining other species of thoughts, then that also is a meditation.
In Swami, for example, when I see the first and the second steps, for example, one person, when we are on the process, we can sometimes need the first step.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
sometimes
yes.
we
Yes.
can also
Correct. You need all the three of them. So basically, it is not always like categorized like one, but there is a predominance. Some people will lead less of number one if they are more leaning towards number three already. And those who are in number two may have to switch sometimes one, and also who are in one can also do two. So all that is there. But this is what I mentioned, right? Like that all of these are for those who are making that attempts. What are these attempts? So these attempts are where they are in the meditation. That is why initially I gave that it is a very traditional analogy of meditation. Where you are mostly in your meditation. If your regular meditation is like a waterfall experience, then you still need restraint. But if your regular meditation has reached a little bit of like a 50% of the time you are coming to the lake-like experience, then you can focus more on two. So based on that, we have to decide. So sometimes, a seasoned meditator also will have a waterfall experience, right? Like if you fight with somebody and regularly you're meditating, but someday you have a fight and you come, your mind is all vikshepa, right? You can't sit there. So that time you need restraint. You need to shut yourself off. So
It's not even waterfall, it's stagnant.
true, yes. Yeah.
So Guruji, it's the
Yeah.
same. Plan A doesn't work, go to plan B. Then
Yes, correct. Yes, yeah. If the plan A doesn't work, so ideally for a person who has the knowledge, our plan A should be transcendence. But transcendence is not easy for most people. So for many people, the plan A many times starts with the restraint only. You put time away. See, even now attending this class, you have to put things off, right? Hopefully, many of you have. We are attending like focused. You're here, so you have to put things off. You have to be here. So that is the restraint already is there. But as we get deeper with the transcendence, then that effort is less to restrain. The effort happens much more easily, seamlessly. So in the first level, the effort is more. The restraint, the effort is more. The second level, the momentum has picked up. The effort is like is already you are supported by that push from previous practice. All right, we will leave it at this. Everybody look at it, and next class we will go into the shlokas. We'll say with the closing prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Narayana. Stay.